From Neighbors and Hill to Bosa and Burrow, doesn't this NFL season seem like the year of the injury? Why is it happening more frequently? Coach Tice has your answer, plus the 3 things the Raiders need to do to beat the Colts. That and so much more starts right now on the Coach's Cut with Mike Tice. All right, welcome to the Coach's Cut. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Let's meet the star of the show. Playing tight end in the NFL for 14 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, Washington Redskins, and the Minnesota Vikings, this 6'7" former college quarterback went on to become the tight end and offensive line coach for 5 franchises, eventually becoming the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. And now here he is, the one, the only, Mike Tice. Coach, great to be with you. How you doing?
Great, Mike. I'm really excited to be here this week. There's a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. Let's start with some Jimmies and Joes. So there's an obvious trend right now NFL fans are picking up on: injuries. Coach, why are so many injuries occurring this season?
Well, I'm a 35-year NFL guy. I learned to do things a certain way. That was very, very tough offseason, very, very tough training camp. Now, my thought on this is, since the new contracts and the less work in OTAs and offseason, the softer training camps, if you will, I believe they're all thoroughbreds. All the NFL athletes, NBA, they're all thoroughbreds. They're all great athletes. I fashion it to running a horse that's not fit enough, or what we say in the horse business, running a horse short.
Okay.
And what happens, and I talked to my friend Bob Baffert, Hall of Fame trainer, and I said, tell me about if you run a horse short, what are you worried about? And he says, when a horse is tired and not totally fit, he starts placing his feet differently, and he's not in balance, and he's more susceptible to injuries. Now, I'm not a doctor, but let me tell you, I think that bottom, that base that the players develop during training camp in the offseason is very, very important, and I think it's disappeared.
Okay, so that's a good answer. I love that. So tell me, from my eye, I just think it's more than usual at this point entering week 5. Do you think it's more than usual?
There is a trend, Mike, and that's a great question. The trend didn't start this year or last year. This trend started about 2009. So let's say for 20 years, between 80 and 2001, you see it on the television. There was only 4 Achilles ruptured, tendon ruptures a season. But between 09 and 16, there were 13 to 16 a year, averaging 14 and a half. And in 23, the last stats that I could find on the internet, there are 22 ATRs, what they call. There's so many of them, they nicknamed them ATRs now, Achilles tendon ruptured. There are 8 so far this year in 25. So I think there's a correlation, Mike. I'm not a doctor, but I think there's a correlation.
Hey, Dr. Tice, I'm going to start calling you that. All right, let's hear what you got to say about this, though, because multiple teams obviously dealing with injuries, a lot on the O-line. So how do you adapt as a former head coach when you're losing guys on the up front, on the O-line? How do you adapt?
That's a great question, too, Mike. You're full of great questions.
Thank you so much.
So I'm only going to talk about 3 teams because they're significant teams. The offensive line injuries that are significant to me and are making a difference. Number 1 is my old team, the Vikings. They're out 3 starters, left guard, right tackle, and now they're on their 3rd string center. Blake Brandel's going to start at center for the Vikings this week. He's never played a snap of center in a game. So now you got Myles Garrett coming up. The Browns have 12 sacks. What are we going to do? The Vikings lead the league with sacks given up with 18, and that's not a great stat to lead the league in. Now you talk about the Chargers. Started out great. We were talking about them every week. They have both tackles out. They already lost Slater to IR, and now they move Alt over to left tackle. Now Alt is out. And Becton was out last week in the concussion protocol. So now they're down 3 linemen. They have the Commanders next, and Dorrance Armstrong has 3 sacks for the Commanders. And the last team I want to talk about who's off to a tremendous start are those Bucks. The Bucks are 3-1, but now they're without their right tackle, who's just put on IR, Gadecki. They already lost Mark, their right guard, and Tristan Wirth he's a great player, but he's not totally back from surgery, and he's playing at left tackle. They're out 3 offensive linemen, but check this out. They got the Seahawks this week in Seattle with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy in the middle. Hey, to add to that problem, I know we're talking about O-line, they just announced that Bucky Irvin, the great running back for Tampa Bay, is not playing this week.
So banged up, it's not going to be easy for them. All right, so from the O-line to playmakers, how should a coach adapt when your key playmakers are dealing with injury?
Well, first of all, as a head coach, you better hire a good coordinator, because the coordinator is just that. He's in charge of finding ways to move the ball, score points, or stop the ball and stop the point scoring. So it's up to the coordinator to come up with a plan to make up for these guys. Let's just talk about something that happened recently. The Dallas Cowboys were without C.D. Lamb.
Right.
Who steps up? George Pickens. 8 for 131, 2 TDs. The quarterback plays arguably his best game in a couple of years, 31 for 40. People are stepping up. But here's some things to keep an eye on. You look at Arizona this week. They lost James Conner already, and this week they announced they lost Trey Benson.
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks.
Their top 2 running backs, Mike, and they got 2 guys behind them, Demercado, excuse me, brother. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name, and Michael Carter. I can pronounce that one. These 2 guys have 5 carries for 9 yards.
Yeah, not a good sample size.
No, and then now this week you lost Malik Neighbors. But let's talk about what else you could do as a coach. Come up with a plan. Who's the next guy stepping up? And make sure you protect those that are going to need help. The 49ers did that on Thursday night. They had a bunch of guys out, including their quarterback, and they go out and win a game 26-23. Some guy named Kendrick Bourne, who I never heard of, has 10 catches for 142.
Right.
The next guy to step up.
So is that really coaching, or is that culture? Why a team that's missing Kittle, Purdy, they got a backup QB, and they got all these guys out, Ayuk, Pearsall, but is it because of culture or Kyle Shanahan?
It's because of their system. But their system allows them to plug another guy in and be presentable. Well, and look at Mac Jones. Here's a guy that was drafted in the first round by the Patriots, bounced around all over the place. He goes out, goes what, 33 for 40-something, and had a great night. The next guy in, that next guy, you hope that the personnel staff and the general manager have done a great job of bringing those guys in to take the place of your injured players.
Yeah, and so it makes a lot of sense. Mac Jones definitely endeared himself to that team. He hung in there. He was a tough guy last night.
Yes, he was.
All right, guys, great stuff, Coach. Let's go to the break, because we're just getting started here on the Coach's Cut with Mike Tice. Next up, we have 2008 AP NFL Coach of the Year, former Falcons head coach Mike Smith joins Coach Tice in conversation. Don't miss this exclusive interview.
Well, I have the pleasure of being joined today by my friend and former boss, former Falcons head coach, 2008 AP NFL Coach of the Year. How about this one? 2008, 2010, 2012 Sporting News NFL Coach of the Year. My friend, Michael Smith. Mike, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for having time to join me today.
I'm doing great, Mike, and I'm looking forward to having a football talk. It's been a while since we've had a football chat, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, except for maybe a college all-star game or two.
Yeah, that's right. We have our yearly meeting and all-star game there in Orlando. Looking forward to seeing you in January.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I always enjoy that. So let's talk about the 3 teams, the NFL teams. I did this with Norv Turner the other day. 3 NFL teams that you coached for. Where we met, you were the DC of the Jaguars for Jack Del Rio. I was a tight end assistant head coach. We worked together for a couple of years. That was a lot of fun. We had a good time. They're 3-1. They have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. They're off to a really good start. The Atlanta Falcons, of course, which we just talked about. You were the head coach there. And we worked together. I was your offensive line coach, actually, in 2014. They have Michael Penix Jr. as their quarterback. They're off to a good start. They're 2-2. Norv Turner was very high on Michael. And then the last team is the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they're 3-1 right now, of course, with Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. Talk on those 3 teams, or any of those teams that you think are off to a good start, and tell us why.
Okay, Mike. I'm really excited about the NFL season, as you know, and we always tried to break down the teams, break down the seasons, and we used to break it down into quarters. I know working with Brian Billick, you know that we try to be very systematic about how we approach it. So they're through the first 4 games, now. And the thing I like about the Jags is they got them a signature win this week against the 49ers, and they found a way to win. They were creating touchdowns by returning punts. They just did a great job. They're 3-1, and I think that they have shown through these first 4 games that they're going to be a ball hawking defense. They're +9,
Plus
which
nine, unbelievable. Yeah.
which is leading the NFL. And as you know, Mike, there's some things that we look at that are really important, and turnover ratio is one of them. They're doing a good job keeping people out of the end zone. They're ranked 5th in points allowed at 18 per game, and they're ranked 5th in red zone efficiency at 44%. So those statistics there tell you that they're playing good football and they are enhancing their chances to win. They're running the ball efficiently on offense. They're 4th in the league, averaging 144 yards per game, and they're doing a great job stopping the run. They're only giving up 82.8 yards. And Mike, all those numbers, you know what that means?
Yeah.
It's a great formula for winning football at any level.
It is. It really is. And I'm so glad to hear you talk about that turnover ratio, because that's one of the key things I talk about in our later segment. Every week I update the fans on what's going on in turnover ratio. So that's a good one.
Yeah, and as you know, Mike, if you win the turnover ratio, you're going to win the game a large percentage of the time. I don't know what the statistics are now. It used to be if you win by 2, you're almost 80% going to win the football game.
Well,
And,
look at last, Mike, just look at, not to interrupt, but look at last week. I track every week for our fans in our last segment. 11-1, the teams were last year that were +1 in the turnover ratio. 11-1. It's amazing.
yeah, it really is. And some things change in the NFL, but that turnover ratio number is going to probably stay pretty consistent. And you know, the Jaguars, they got a first-year head coach in Liam Cohen, and he's done a great job with the new GM James Gladstone, who comes out of the Rams family, of rebuilding their roster, and they've got the talent to make some noise in the AFC South. I really believe that, and I got to give kudos. They're doing some, they're doing some things offensively, but I got to give kudos to their defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, who joined the staff from the Green Bay Packers, and he's made a very strong first impression through the first 4 games for me. I really like the Jaguars
Yeah,
this.
I could tell. Yeah, I do too. I know that my son Nate is a huge fan of Trevor Lawrence's. So, what do you think about the Falcons, the Falcapones, and the Bucks?
Well, the Falcons are 2-2.
Right.
Yes, and the thing I'm concerned a little bit about is they're 0-2 within the division, which
Yeah.
Mike, early in the season when you have your games against opponents in your division, they are count 1.5 in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be problematic as we go down the season, because the tiebreakers, first thing they do is they prioritize head-to-head records,
Right.
followed by that, then it's wins within the division, and then it's records against common opponents. And both of the losses that we already mentioned have been to division opponents.
Yeah.
There was a head scratching loss. I don't know how the Falcons don't win that game against Carolina. Carolina is one of the bottom feeders this year in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I really like second-year quarterback Michael Penix. And I like the pass rushers that they added in the draft.
Yeah, they did a good job with those young
Yeah,
guys. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jalen Walker and James Pierce, they're both going to be really good players. And we know, having been with the Falcons, we've always been looking for pass rushers. Everybody's looking for pass rushers in this league. And they've been trying to address it really hard, really since John Abraham left 6 or 7 years ago. This Michael Penix, I love him.
Yeah. Everybody does. Norv loved them last week too.
Yeah. Well, I recruited his dad to Tennessee Tech. He was a
Oh, is
running back
that right?
at Tennessee Tech. So I was a coaching on the defensive side, but he was a great running back, great young man. And I've had a chance to visit with Michael Penix Jr., and he hadn't fall far from the tree.
Thanks to Mike for coming on our show this week. There's a lot more to that interview and some really good stuff. You can see the entire interview on our YouTube page, Silver State Sports. And don't forget to follow us and like us.
All right, after the break, Coach Tice is giving us the 3 things the Raiders need to do to win this weekend. All right, welcome back to the Coach's Cut with Mike Tice. Mike Davis here with you. So, Coach, another tough loss for the guys, but this time there was definitely some bright spots. So break down for us what you saw from Week 4.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff, Mike. We said stop the run. They did. They only had 69 yards rushing, the Bears, 2.7 a carry. We said 30-plus rushes. They ran the ball 31 times for 240 yards, 7.7 and 1 TD, create turnovers. We didn't get this done. The Raiders did not get this done. We said end up in the plus side. They were -1 going into the game. They are now -4. You hear all these coaches come on and talk about the same thing, turnovers. And then we said create explosives in the run game, and they did. 10-plus yard carries, 9 of them in this game, Mike.
Yeah, Genty finally got going. Now, this game really feels like a gut punch, though, Coach, because it feels like the Raiders kind of outplayed them, yet they still lost. So as a coach, what does a coach tell his team after a loss like that?
Well, we heard one of our guests talk about it a couple of weeks ago. What do you tell your team when you're 0-3? You have to be honest. You have to say, listen, we need better special teams execution. We can't lose a game on a block kick with 33 seconds to go in the game, and we need to sew up our kicking game. 30th in the league in punt return yards and 28 in kickoff return yards. We're putting our defense in a little bit of a problem there, so we got to sew up the kicking game. That's what I would say. Lastly, Mike, the obvious one. We got to tell the team, guys, we got to protect the football at all costs. We cannot turn the football over.
All right, it's all good stuff there. Now the Raiders, they go on the road to face a tough Colts team, one of the bright spots of the NFL this year. What are the 3 things the Raiders need to do to win on Sunday?
Again, we talk about repetition, but this is a coach's show. They need to stop the run again. And that's going to be harder this week with Jonathan Taylor on the other side. He leads the league in rushing, and he looks healthy, and he looks fast. They got to run the football again. They got to get this guy you're looking at, Ashton Genty, 30-plus carries again, because he's going to pop a couple. They got to win the turnover battle. They got to get the turnover battle. They got to win it. They haven't won it, I don't believe, all year, maybe one time. We got to win the turnover battle, and we got to create explosives, and I don't care if they come in the passing game or they come in a running game, but we got to get chunk plays this week. That's what the Raiders have to do to be victorious.
There they go. 3 keys to victory. Don't go anywhere. It's odds and ends when we return. All right, it's time for odds and ends. So, Coach, let's start with your baby, the turnover differential. First of all, give us an update on what you saw just from Week 4.
Well, Week 4 was glaring, except for the Broncos that were -1. The teams that were +1 in the turnover ratio, their record was 11-1. The Broncos were the only team that were in the negative and won, and they did that like in the first game of the year as well.
Gotcha. All right. And then what about from just an overall standpoint, from Week 1 throughout the season?
Yeah, sorry, Mike. The week through 4 weeks, Mike, it's glaring. We already talked about Mike Smith did. Jaguars are +9, Steelers are +7, Bears, because of the Raiders, are +5, Lions are +4, and the Eagles are +4. Why is that significant? Their total records together are 15-5.
Wow.
Through 4 weeks, teams that are +3 or better in the turnover ratio are 27-9. And then here's one for you, -7, the worst in the league, the Jets, and they deserve to be 0-4.
Wow. Okay, so there you go. Basic thing. A turnover ratio is the easiest way to tell some trends in the NFL. Now, Coach, we've seen 2 international games already this year. Now the Vikings, after playing in Dublin last week, they're going to spend another week abroad and face the Browns in London. So before we get your advice on just how to approach those games, did you ever, as a former coach or player, have to play a game overseas?
Yes, absolutely. Played in Berlin in the preseason back in the 90s. That was interesting. We also, as a coach, played 2 games in London, and we took two different ways. One time we went in later in the week, and then the second time we went in earlier in the week and spent the entire week there. There's a lot of different things that they tell you to do, the traveling, the drinking enough water if you're on the plane for X amount of hours. Once you get there, don't go to sleep, stay up, try to get back on your clock. There's different things to do. You don't have the same practice tools like sleds and pads, so you kind of have to make some things up. But playing overseas is tough. It's not easy, and there are a lot of distractions.
Okay, so what are some of the things a coach can do to put his team in the best position to succeed internationally?
Well, I think you don't want to go in there and create the wheel, recreate the wheel, put in a whole new offense, put in a whole new defense. You want to do what you're doing to that point the best. You want to make sure you protect your players, and you also got to look at it. You got to win the game.
And for a lot of these teams, I know technically one team's playing from the home perspective, but it's not a home game.
No.
You know, there is no, it's two away games.
It's two away games, and in the stands you're going to see jerseys from all the teams, all 30 teams in the stands, and then you're going to have your home team, but it's mostly people coming in from Europe. They're not coming in from America. Americans aren't going to fill a stadium up of 60,000 people, so it's different. The fields aren't as good. They're a little slippery from my recollection. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Maybe too much fun. There could be some distractions. You don't know. I know
Always.
Diane, your wife, she had a lot of fun on those trips.
Oh, she loved those trips. When we got those trips, she was booking her flights.
All right. Well, shout out to Diane, Coach. Thanks so much for a great show. This is it for this edition of The Coach's Cut with Mike Tice. For producer James and editor Jess, I'm Mike Davis. Enjoy Week 5. We'll see you next week.